2020 has been filled with a lot of firsts for us, as we're sure many of you can relate. But since we live our life on the water, on a vessel built to explore, many of our firsts have come in the form of exploring new cruising grounds and seeing new parts of our home that has so much to offer. From the South Puget Sound region all the way to the northernmost San Juan Island. And today, we're heading north to Whidbey Island to one of its most well-known towns, Coupeville. You think they're leaving? They just pulled up their dinghy?
They pulled up their dinghy. I can see their engines running too. And they just put on his life jacket. I'm a little concerned because that's a rock, so I don't think we want to anchor down on the rock.
That red point,
yeah.
That was on the chart.
Yeah.
You think you can go further back here, and then if this doesn't work, Penn Cove right behind it?
Yeah. Looks like there's plenty of water depth here. It's still 35 feet, and the chart shows 3. I'm sure it drops off quickly, but...
Mm-hmm. You're comfortable with that?
What's that?
You're comfortable with that? With a 6-foot draft?
Yeah, because there's 33 feet of water under the boat right now.
Yeah, but what if we...
Look at that sailboat. I'm sure it has a big draft.
Oh, that's true. Good point. So we finally made it to Coupeville, and by finally, I mean it's taken us 6 years to finally come and check this little port town out on Whidbey Island. It did take us about 6 hours from Shoal Bay Marina in Seattle. We left at 8:30 and pulled in just around 2:30. So it's a little over 40 miles. Not the quickest trip, but not the longest trip. So it was a good ride, and as you can see, it's a beautiful day. And Coupeville, I can't believe we haven't been here already. This is such a great looking little town. It's really cute and quaint. It's got a big public dock, and there's a cafe on it. There's, I think, about 11 or so restaurants, cafes, coffee shops, art galleries, kind of your typical little old school port town. I think this is from like the mid 1800s. It's where the movie with Sandra Bullock was filmed. Practical Magic. We just rented it last night. We had never seen it, and we figured, well, let's watch it first before we come here, and then we can go to some of the places that were in the movie. Unfortunately, we both fell asleep about 15 or 20 minutes into it. The other cool thing is this is right by Penn Cove, where Penn Cove mussels come from. So if you're a shellfish person, seafood, and you eat a lot of mussels and clams and oysters, you'll know what Penn Cove is. They don't have any tours, unfortunately. It's not open to the public, because that would be really fun to see, but maybe we'll take the dinghy over there and see their farm, because I can see it from here. I can see all of their, I don't even know what you call it, but they're shellfish farms that are kind of laying in the water. When we pulled in and got situated, Sean said he had one quick little cleaning thing to do on the dinghy before taking it down. And now I see him waxing or buffing or doing something. So let's go check out what Sean's doing to the dinghy. Did it really need to get cleaned again, or waxed or buffed? Probably not.
Hey.
How's the cleaning going?
Good.
You didn't say buffing and waxing again.
No, I just had a small strip that I didn't get last the other week. Don't do this to a new dinghy. It might compromise the pipe on.
So this isn't good to be doing?
I don't know. I'm just doing it real lightly. It's pulling out all the black dirt and diesel soot. The top looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah, looks good.
I've seen it before it started. It all looked like this down here. That's so black. That's kind of what it looked like.
There's a saying that owning a boat is simply doing boat work in exotic places, and it couldn't be more true. But if the work has to get done, or in Sean's case, he just can't help himself, you might as well do it in exotic places. After waxing that one little strip, we made a quick trip over to the main dock to check out the gift shop and get a lay of the land. We even had yet another first, having to pay for short-term dinghy moorage before calling it an early night. If you enjoy anchorages with a lot to look at, people, boats, activity on shore, and beautiful scenery, you'll certainly enjoy Coupeville.
First I put the metal polish on with a light Scotch-Brite pad. Then I come back with a rag and buff it off. It gets, the metal turns your Scotch-Brite and your rag pretty dirty, so it's a good idea to wear gloves. Makes cleanup a little easier. I don't need to do this that often because every time I wash the boat I kind of wipe down all of the rails. But maybe once a year or so. Go and polish them up a little bit.
Sean, our boat neighbor's putting up a hammock.
We need a hammock.
I know.
Fly off of our dinghy crane.
But the question is it hammock or hammock?
I don't know. We don't own one, so how do we know?
I don't know. Growing up, I always said hammock, and then moving out here, everybody says hammock.
Yeah.
That might be a good investment for our big trip.
Uh-huh.
Do you think you'd actually be able to relax on it, though?
For a couple minutes. Until I see something that needs cleaning.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I know, there's starfish everywhere. Ooh, another big starfish. While the wharf is the town's most visited spot, a short walk towards Front Street offers a good mix of shops, bookstores, cafes, wine tasting rooms, ice cream, a spa, a few bed and breakfasts, and several restaurants. Named for Captain Thomas Coupe, who laid out the town in the 1850s, Coupeville is Washington State's second oldest community, situated on the shores of Penn Cove. And there's also a ferry on the west side of town which runs across Puget Sound into Port Townsend. So big bummer. We forgot our masks.
I got my mask.
You do?
Speak for yourself.
Where's your mask?
It's my pocket.
Why didn't you remind me?
I don't know.
I forgot my mask, so I won't. Well, you could go into places and get, if we got ice cream.
Pull your shirt over your head or something. Go in like the great Cornholio.
What?
I am Cornholio.
Yeah, this is further up. We're going further east into Coupeville. This is more residential section. Just cute little houses and just a nice quiet neighborhood. How would you describe Coupeville?
It's a cool little town. Maybe like a little New England flair or something.
That's when we first pulled in, I thought it had kind of a Nantucket look to it.
It's small, just a couple blocks, but it's nice.
Coupeville's cool. Unfortunately, connectivity's not cool here, so we're probably gonna head back. If we had the whole week off, it would be a great place to stay and take our scooters around and hike and just see all that's here. You can easily cross from here to the other side of Whidbey, to the west side, where you can see that we can get the other side of Puget Sound and look over the Strait of Juan de Fuca, which would be cool. But not this trip. We'll head back. Maybe we'll even see that giant yacht we've been gawking at on marine traffic for the last week.
That'd be cool.
Are we gonna be on a mission to see Lonian?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We're gonna be on a mission to cannonball in their swimming pool.
To wrap up our 24 hours in Coupeville, we took a quick ride by the Pen Cove Shellfish Farm, just around the corner from the wharf. Pen Cove Shellfish grows and harvests around 2 million pounds of mussels annually, and each mussel raft supports between 900 to 2,500 mussel lines and can yield up to 50 pounds of mussels on each line. Unfortunately, we had arrived just as both of the custom harvest vessels had completed their work for the day, so we didn't get to see them in action, but it was still fun to cruise by.
Alrighty, let's go do an engine room check and change the fuel tank that we're drawing from. There we go.
Sean, should I make cookie dough balls?
Sure, that sounds good.
You liked them the last time I made them?
Yeah, they're good.
And we're running low on treats, so it only seems appropriate.
Sounds like a plan. I'll keep an eye on things up here.
I know you were good for it. Sean, do we know how fast it's cruising at?
14 knots. It needs to refresh, so I lost it.
Oh, bummer. I'm getting like nervous. Are you getting nervous?
No.
No?
Why are you nervous?
Because this is real exciting.
In the absence of cruise ships in Puget Sound this summer, getting the chance to cruise by a one-of-a-kind mega yacht like Lonian and her support vessel is a welcome sight. Although Hodor and her mothership are quite spectacular to see up close and surely provide $160 million of fun and adventure, we still prefer our 43 feet of freedom. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell, give us a thumbs up, and maybe even stick around for, you guessed it,
Q&A! Hey guys, thanks for all your great questions this week. You know what time it is, it's Q&A time. And this week I got an assistant. Elizabeth's gonna help read some questions as well as answer them. So why don't you kick it off?
All right. So thank you guys for all the great questions. First one's from Debbie in Florida, and this is one we get a lot of, and we'll probably do a full video on it at some point. But she asks, you have been living full-time on Freedom for a while now. What are some things you would do differently or wish you had known in hindsight? And we've talked about this a lot, and for me personally, I think looking back, we always worried that if we lived on the boat, we would start to hate being on the boat, or we wouldn't do as much cruising because it would just become kind of a chore, and we were here all the time in a small space and we just wouldn't enjoy it. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. Ever since we moved aboard, I think we've loved it even more, and we wish we would have done it sooner. If we could have, even a few months before we knew we were going to have the opportunity to have a live aboard slip, we were even kind of debating, do we even want to live on the boat? Should we rent for another year? And the best decision was to move on it, and we've never been happier. We've done so much cruising, and we can't wait to just go farther and do more cruising. So what about you? Hindsight?
Yeah, mostly what Elizabeth said. I think I was worried that once we became a live aboard, the boat would become our house and it wouldn't become a vessel that takes us cruising to destinations. So I thought we'd be tied permanently to a dock, and the boat would get cluttered up with stuff, and it just would become a home but happen to be floating in the water. So yeah. It's been a great decision. I like having everything in one place and not scattered between multiple places, an apartment and a boat. So I can't say enough about the minimalist life and jumping into it.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Debbie. Next up is from Jose from San Diego. So he says, I don't own a boat, but I love your videos. Maybe someday I'll pull the trigger and buy one. My question is, would you have liked Nordhavn? Would you have liked a Nordhavn with a fly bridge? Great question, and something we debated a lot. Maybe as a follow-up, what are the pros and cons of a fly bridge? So I'll let Sean take this because he's more of the expert and was one to help us decide yes or no on a fly bridge.
Yes, I'll take this. So fly bridges are great. A lot of people like a fly bridge because they want to enjoy time outside. I think at the end of the day, most people buy a fly bridge for resale, and when you ask people how much they actually use their fly bridge, I think you'd be surprised how little it is. When you're in a Nordhavn and you're underway for very long days, and sometimes it's not practical to be outside. It's either very windy because you might be going into a breeze, or it might be very hot and you're going to get sunburned. So I think most people probably use their fly bridge more when they're at an anchorage or at the dock as just another outdoor lounging space. I think our solution to that is anywhere on the exterior of our boat can become a lounging space if you have a couple chairs. So we take chairs and we go sit up on the roof and turn the roof into a fly bridge. The one thing to think about too is when you have a fly bridge, there's that much more boat to maintain, more surface area to wax, duplication in electronics and engine controls, so that means more maintenance. So I would think, I think sometimes having a boat without a fly bridge is easier. So that'd be our answer.
Yeah. In boating, more is not better and bigger is not better. And chairs are about $20 a piece versus $50,000 to $100,000 more for a fly bridge in some cases.
Yeah. One other thing too, in the smaller Nordhavn boats, the fly bridge is very small. So in a 40 and a 43, the fly bridge really only consists of maybe 2 chairs. So it's not like it's a an expansive outdoor area with lots of seating for guests and things like that. On the larger Nordhavns, absolutely, I think a fly bridge would be great. But on the smaller ones, I think they tend to look a little top heavier, and they're just maybe not as practical as you may think.
Yeah. So thank you, Jose, for that good question. Next up, Rich. He didn't say where he's from, but his question is about our heat and AC. So he always wonders about comfort in a boat in really cold weather and really hot weather. Where you are located, I suspect air conditioning is much less of a concern than heat, but how do you think she would do in Florida or the Caribbean? Is your air conditioning system robust? I know there have been many Nordhavn owners who spend lots of time in hot weather, but I would love to hear what you say about the issue. So,
yeah.
Good question.
So our boat has both air conditioning and heat. We actually have 3 units. The units are a combination unit, so it's an air conditioner that runs in reverse cycle as a heat pump to generate heat. One of those units services the staterooms down below, 1 unit services our pilot house, and then the 3rd unit services our salon and our galley. And it works great for both air conditioning and heat. I will say that it's designed more around the purpose of air conditioning. What I mean by that is all of the ducting is set up, perfect for air conditioning, but not at all correct for heating. The outlets are at the top of the room, the return vents are at the bottom of the room, and when heat rises and your heat's blowing in at the top of the room, it can be a bit sort of drafty, I guess, in cold weather. So for cold weather, we more often than not use electric space heaters, one down below in the cabins and one in the salon, and we find that keeps the boat at, I guess, more of a even temperature, and there's less sort of hot and cold spots in the boat. So air conditioning works exceptionally well. The heat works good enough. I think for here, if we knew we were going to be here forever, we would maybe consider diesel heat or just reconfiguring the system a little bit for that.
Yeah, and there are very few days that you're uncomfortable on either ends of the spectrum, hot or cold. There are maybe a handful, if that, days in the winter where you really are cold, and same in the summer, there's a handful where you're really warm. So the weather up here is really conducive. If you didn't have all that on your boat, it's conducive to make you comfortable. So thank you, Rich, for that good question. Next and final question is from Stanley on Orcas Island. His question is, with your Nordhavn 43, how far would you trek? Could you ever venture to a faraway destination like Hawaii via San Diego? Would you keep it to Mexico or Alaska or even that far? Great question.
Yeah, we get lots of questions about the range of our boat. There has been a 43 that has circumnavigated the world, went kind of the traditional sailor's milk route through the South Pacific. But this boat has a range of anywhere from sort of 2,500 nautical miles to maybe 3,500 nautical miles, depending on the speed that you run. So if you want a longer range, you're probably going to be running at about 6 knots. And if you want to shorten that range, then you might be running 7 or 7.5 knots. So the boat certainly has all the capability to go anywhere that we want to go. I think for starters, we certainly want to see Alaska while we're in the Pacific Northwest, and then work our way down the West Coast. And I think during those initial travels, that'll start to allow us to plan where we want to take the boat next. So,
yeah, and Freedom has already been to Hawaii. She was originally listed for sale back 2 sales ago, I think, or a couple years before we purchased her. She was in Hawaii, and then she went to San Diego and came all the way up here. So she's already been to Hawaii, just not with us, and we're looking forward to taking her there someday.
And she's been to Mexico with the first owner.
Yeah.
So
she's a somewhat well-traveled boat so far. And awesome. That is it for today's Q&A. Thank you all so much for submitting your questions. Again, if you want us to answer your question on a future video, give us a comment on or leave us a message on Instagram, or you can comment below in this video or send us an email, hello@mbfreedomseattle.com. Thank you guys. Have a good rest of your week.
thank you, everybody. Have an awesome week.